My name's Ryan. I live in a quiet town in northern Washington. One of those places where the forest never ends and the fog never really lifts. It's peaceful by day, but at night it feels like something's alive out there, watching, listening. My house sits right at the edge of the woods, a thick stretch of pine that separates our neighborhood from an old fenced-off water reservoir. There are rusted, "No trespassing" signs nailed to trees and a sagging barbed wire fence around the water. Locals say it's government property, but here's the weird thing. It doesn't show up on any map. Not Google, not Apple, nothing. It's like it doesn't exist. When I was younger, my sister and I even searched for the name painted on the gate, Benton Water Facility. Nothing came up. No records, no photos, just silence. Still, I've always used that trail as part of my 2-mile running loop. I'm on my college's cross-country team, and it's the perfect route. Quiet, isolated, no traffic. You can hear your own heartbeat out there. The gravel crunches under your shoes, and the air smells like cold metal and pine. For years, I ran there without a problem, until a few weeks ago, when I realized something behind that fence might have been watching me all along. It happened after one of my late runs. I came home exhausted, showered, and crashed in bed with the window cracked open. Around midnight, a storm rolled in. Heavy rain, deep thunder, the kind that makes the whole house tremble. I remember thinking how peaceful it sounded. Then, beneath the storm, I heard something else. Crying. At first, it was faint, just a soft, broken sound carried by the wind. But then I heard it again, closer. A woman's voice, right beneath my bedroom window. She said, "Can you help me? I'm cold." Every hair on my body stood up. For a moment, I couldn't move. My brain was trying to reason with my fear. Maybe it was a neighbor, someone stranded in the storm. I finally grabbed a flashlight and ran downstairs, barefoot, straight into the rain. She was there. A woman crouched under the overhang below my window. Her long, dark hair was plastered to her face. Her white dress clung to her skin, dripping. She wasn't looking at me, just staring at the ground, trembling like she was freezing. I called out, "Hey, are you hurt? Do you need help?" Slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a split second, I felt relief. Someone real, someone alive. Then she ran, not stumbled, not turned. She bolted, fast, straight toward the woods. Her bare feet slapped the mud as she disappeared into the dark. I just stood there, soaked and shaking, watching the trees sway in the lightning. When I told my dad, he tried to stay calm, said it was probably someone drunk or lost. But when I mentioned that she'd been right under my window, his face went pale. He checked every lock in the house twice that night. For a while, things felt normal again, until the next week. It was a cool evening, the kind where the sun hangs low and turns the trees gold. I was running my usual loop, and as I came around the bend near the reservoir, I saw her again. She was sitting at the edge of the water, her feet dangling in, her white dress glowing faintly in the dusk. I froze. She didn't move, just sat there, back to me, hair hanging over her shoulders. I should have turned around. I should have gone home, but I couldn't. I whispered, "Hey, are you okay?" The moment I spoke, she snapped her head up. Even from across the fence, I could see her face, pale, hollow, lips bluish and cracked. Her eyes were open too wide, too still. Then she ran, straight at me. I stumbled backward as she hit the fence, hard. The chain link rattled, and then she smiled. That smile wasn't right. It stretched too far, too forced, like she was trying to copy what a smile was supposed to look like. I yelled that I was calling the cops. She didn't move, didn't blink. Then, she turned away, walked calmly to the edge of the reservoir, and dove in. A small splash. Then silence. No ripples, no bubbles, no sign she ever came back up. I called 911, shaking so bad I could barely talk. When the police arrived, they searched the area, the fence, the water, nothing. Not a footprint, not a shred of fabric. The next morning, I checked again. The surface was perfectly still. Since that night, I've stopped running that trail. But sometimes, when the wind hits just right, I swear I can still hear footsteps outside my window. Soft, careful, almost curious. And every time it rains, I wake up to that same voice. Faint, just below the thunder. Can you help me? I'm cold.
My name is Mason, and for most of my life, I've worked as a property inspector in New Mexico. It's not glamorous work. Long drives, quiet towns, and more empty homes than you'd think exist in one lifetime. But it pays the bills. Most days are predictable until last spring, when one inspection changed everything. That night, I learned some houses don't just hold memories. They hold something else. It started like any normal Thursday. I'd finished my last job for the day when my boss texted, "Urgent inspection, old estate outside Gallup. Neighbors complaining. Check for structural issues." I almost ignored it. The sun was sinking fast and a storm was crawling across the horizon. But urgent meant overtime pay and I needed it. The address was listed as 147 County Road 17, a place I didn't recognize. When I typed it into my GPS, nothing came up. No map result, no street view, just an empty grid. That should have been the first red flag. By the time I found the dirt road, the light was gone. The road itself looked forgotten, cracked, overgrown, and swallowed by desert brush. The storm rolled closer, wind howling through the mesquite trees. Then my headlights hit something through the dust. A house. 2 stories, pale wood, sagging roof. Every instinct told me to turn back. But work was work. I parked by a rusted gate hanging half open. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier. Cold, sharp drops cutting through the quiet. The moment I stepped out, the world felt wrong. No sound, no insects, not even the hum of the wind. Just stillness. The front door creaked open with barely a touch. Inside, the air was thick with dust and age. Wallpaper peeled in strips. Furniture outlines were still burned into the floor where sunlight hadn't touched in years. I called out, "Anyone here?" But my voice came back small and hollow. Every step echoed too long, like the house didn't want me there. I started taking pictures for the report. Walls, ceiling, foundation cracks. Everything seemed ordinary until I reached the kitchen. That's where I saw it. A grey door, newer than everything else. Smooth paint, heavy steel handle. A padlock hung from it, broken clean through. The metal was twisted, not cut. Like something had ripped it apart. A faint smell drifted out from the crack, wet concrete and metal. My stomach knotted, but my curiosity won. I pulled the door open. A narrow staircase led downward. My flashlight barely reached the bottom. The air that rose up was cold, damp, old. It clung to my skin like fog. I called out again, softer this time. "Hello?" No answer, just the drip, drip, drip of water somewhere below. I went down. 1 step. 2. The light from upstairs disappeared. Each creak of wood sounded louder in the dark. By the time I reached the basement floor, my breath was visible. Then my flashlight flickered. And that's when I saw them. Handprints. Dozens of them smeared across the concrete walls. Some small, some large. All fresh enough to see the smudged oils on the surface. The smell down there was sharp, rust and mildew mixed with something sour. My pulse started to pound in my ears. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from behind me. I spun, light trembling, but the stairs were empty. I told myself it was the pipes, the wind, anything. But the sound came again. Closer. This time it was dragging slightly, like someone walking barefoot on wet stone. I turned and nearly dropped my light. In the center of the basement sat a metal chair, bolted to the floor. Leather straps dangled from its arms. Dark stains ran beneath it. I took a step closer, heart hammering, and saw something carved into the wall behind it. Jagged letters scratched deep into the cement. "Do not open." The air felt thick, alive. Then the footsteps stopped. Silence. And then, close to my ear, a whisper. A slow rattling breath that didn't belong to me. I froze. My skin crawled as I turned my head toward the sound. In the far corner, just outside the beam of my light, something moved. A crouched figure. Pale skin stretched thin over its frame. When my light hit its face, its eyes flared like an animal's caught in headlights. I stumbled backward, my boot catching on the floor. The flashlight slipped from my hand and rolled, spinning the beam across the room. For one terrible second, it illuminated the stairway, bare feet standing on the steps. Still, waiting. That was enough. I bolted. I hit the stairs so fast I nearly fell twice. Slammed the door shut, jammed a chair under the handle, and ran for my truck. Rain hammered the windshield as I fumbled the keys, breath tearing in and out of my chest. When the engine roared to life, I didn't look back. I drove until I reached the highway, shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheels straight. When I called my boss, I told him the property was condemned, unsafe, and needed to be removed from the list. I didn't tell him about the chair or the whisper. I couldn't. Days later, I checked the address again. 147 County Road 17. Nothing came up. No property records, no coordinates. Even the road itself seemed to stop earlier on every map I looked at. But I know what I saw. And sometimes late at night, when the sky rumbles with thunder, I dream of that basement again. Of the echoing footsteps and that soft, shallow breath behind me. And every time the thunder rolls, it sounds exactly like that door, creaking open again.
That night started like any other Friday. Jason and his friend Leo had driven out to a small house party a few towns over. It wasn't wild, just people drinking in a backyard, music humming in the background, laughter carrying through the dark. Jason was the designated driver, nursing the same beer for hours, while Leo got louder and more unhinged as the night wore on. By the time they left around 1 in the morning, the drizzle had turned into a blinding storm. The roads were slick, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Leo kept rambling about nothing, complaining about Jason's driving, until his whining shifted to something more desperate: he had to pee. Jason told him to hold it, but Leo wouldn't shut up. Finally, Jason pulled over along an empty stretch of road bordered by fields that disappeared into the darkness. There were no houses, no lights, just the sound of wind and rain battering the car. Leo stumbled out before Jason even finished telling him to hurry up, vanishing into the field like the storm had swallowed him whole. Jason sighed, waiting with the engine running, until he remembered the umbrella in the back seat. He figured he might as well step out too, heading in the opposite direction to relieve himself. The moment he did, he heard it rustling, faint but deliberate, coming from behind the car. He froze, looking back over his shoulder. Nothing, just rain hammering the gravel. He brushed it off and returned to the driver's seat, but Leo was still gone. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The rain didn't let up. Jason's irritation grew into unease. He was about to honk when movement flashed in his side mirror. Leo was sprinting toward the car, soaked and terrified, before he could even close the door. He was screaming at Jason to drive. Jason didn't think he slammed the gas and tore down the road. Leo's words came out in gasps. He said while he was in the field, he saw someone who looked exactly like Jason walking deeper into the crops. Thinking Jason was playing some kind of prank, Leo followed. But when the figure turned, it wasn't Jason. He couldn't see its face. But the way it moved was wrong to smooth, to silent. Then it started walking toward him. That's when Leo ran. Before Jason could process what he'd heard, the car jolted hard to the right. A flat tire, the worst possible moment. Rain pounding, darkness pressing in on every side. He pulled over, cursing. But the second he stepped out, the fear hit him like a punch. Lodged deep into the sidewall of the tire was a screwdriver. Not a nail, not debris. One had jammed it in there on purpose. Leo's face went pale. The two of them scrambled to replace the tire, hands shaking, soaked to the bone. Then came the scream, a woman's voice, sharp and distant, cutting through the storm. It didn't sound human, not quite. Leo shouted that they needed to help, but Jason's instincts screamed the opposite. He threw the tools into the trunk, jumped in the car, and floored it. Leo was yelling at him the whole time, furious, saying someone could be dying out there. Jason didn't answer. He couldn't. The scream didn't sound like someone asking for help, it sounded like bait. They didn't stop until they reached Jason's driveway. Rain still pouring. Silence between them. Leo called 911 and reported what they'd seen. Jason just stared at the windshield, replaying everything in his mind. The screwdriver, the figure, the scream. It didn't add up. None of it. The police later said they searched the area and found nothing. No signs of struggle, no footprints. Not even the tire Jason had left behind. Leo tried to make sense of it later, suggesting maybe it had been the woman who sabotaged the car, trying to get their attention. But Jason knew better. That scream wasn't a cry for help. It was a lure, and whatever was out there in that field hadn't wanted to be found.
Don't forget to subscribe, because there are more stories like this, waiting to be told.